That's pretty amazing. The reading the literature, when you read, like she just read, when I read these pamphlets, Dignity of Choice we have here, there's 12 and 12. It talks about the spiritual awakening, but for some, and in Alcoholics Anonymous, when I went to meetings, we had the big book, but no, everybody there was in the problem. You go back 10 years later, talking about the same problem. It's the same with the food. Our literature, you read those books, Voices of Recovery for Today, those particular books, read them. Read this Overeaters Anonymous 12 and 12, OA 12 and 12. And it talks like the reading we just heard. It tells you about spirituality and God consciousness, but no, when we have meetings, it's all about the intellect, and we'll figure it out. Self-knowledge, it talks about the book. Self-knowledge is to no avail on page 11. When Bill realized, he said, self-knowledge, no, that's not the answer. Our best thinking got us here. It's amazing, though. You read anything, pick up the literature. And when you go to meetings, the people in the problem, they're in the solution. It doesn't seem to work. They have the same problem. If you go there 5 years later, the same problem. But when somebody's in a solution, like we read the sick man prayer, you have resentment. The number one problem is resentment. You could read the 552, read that, to pray for the other person. I had resentments for years. I could get over them in a moment by reading page 66 and 67 or page 552. The 10-step promises, if you want to go to page 84, it says, we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol or food or people. We surrendered. The fight is over. Surrender to the what we heard the last share. Surrender. Just this alone. I'm going to leave you with something. If this week alone you could, when you get off the meeting, taste the deliciousness of the water. Just this week alone, drink it more during the week. If you're thinking of having these other drinks or even juice is condensed sugar. But if you eat fruit, it has fiber in it. But if you get to this alone, you know how many calories, how much weight you lose? Diet sodas are no good. That has a poison in it. It ruins your taste buds because what it does, even though it's 0 calories, it has chemicals. It's 10 times sweeter than sugar, so you're not going to want to eat a piece of fruit after that. It's masking your taste buds with the synthetic, with the big lie. It's all a big lie. It says in our book, know the truth from the false. The truth will set you free. This is the only way out. I mean, people can argue with me and think differently when I say that. But 95% of diets don't work. So how could you, and the other 5% people who keep on them are miserable. We had in AA, we'd say a guy come in, he was so miserable, didn't want to work the program, didn't want to work the steps. So you might as well go out and drink, he was so miserable, he was ready to kill himself. Dry drunk. We work this program, we try to measure the food, go on these diets, we're dry drunks. When we try to control life and people, we're dry drunks. Hey, the 10-step prayer says what? We cease fighting anyone or anything. We cease fighting anyone or anything. My whole life was about fighting everyone and everything. Figure it out. Try, and then it goes on to say, for by this time sanity will have returned. When we realize how insane we are. But the corporations advertising on TV, the internet, wherever they're advertising, they're telling us the sanity is the food. To eat these crazy, crazy, crazy foods that they produce, that synthetics and poison. It's poison. We did have a perception change. People say, well, how do I have a perception change about life? We could use the same energy to be happy, joyous, and free. We could use the same energy to eat healthy as we do towards our negative emotions and towards what the food industry tells us. Use the same energy. But that is the truth. We fed into the big lie all day long. This program talks about being honest. The one I had to be honest with was myself. We heard it before. Somebody just shared about the truth. The truth will set you free. The truth is that we were made to be happy and joyous. We have God's source within us. We block it out, and the same with the food and our addictions. We made a choice, We could blame everyone and everything. But we made a choice. We're going to make food a higher power. We're going to make people a higher power. We made that choice. No matter what happened to us when we were younger. We have a thing we read on page 544 where the person came to the conclusion. They said, it's not so much what happened to us in our childhood, but it's the way I reacted to it. Other people hear the corporations on TV, they don't feed into it, but we did. Other people in life don't have to feel they have to control everything and have the desire, which is the cause of all suffering. They don't have to be rich or wealthy to be happy. But, some of us, like Bill did, he wanted to be famous with the golf and he wanted to be famous with the being an analyst on Wall Street. 10-step promises just says it all, and it goes on to say, we are seldom interested in liquor. So people say, well, how do I get to the point of seldom interested? Well, when our perception changes and we realize the devastation and how negative it is, and we go towards the healthy stuff, have that God consciousness, our perception changes. At that point, we wouldn't even want it, but it's easier to stay away from it. And when the ego comes in and says, look, you're going to die unless you have all of this food, when the ego comes in and says, you need all these globs of food, and we don't have to listen anymore. When the ego tells us we have to be resentful, just observe it, but don't resist it. Just become friends with your emotions. Just like I said, some people like to jump with a parachute out of an airplane. They like to go to a scary movie. They like that exhilaration. To them, they enjoy it. They don't resist it. So you get anxious or fearful or guilt or shame. But when you don't resist it, it goes away. It's the resistance that makes it real. Just like I said, either in a problem or solution. If I go to a meeting and talk every meeting about the problem I have with my mother-in-law or somebody, my children or something like that, I'm making it real. The whole point is, the more you talk about it, you're lying to yourself. It's not real. What other people say or do or think is none of my business. It's usually something, a figment of my imagination, but even if it's not something to get upset about. And why do we go for the junk food? Because we're brainwashed. Just like we could wash our brains out with this program and have that perception change. But there is a period of detox we go through. But after a while, and it don't have, like you had mentioned somebody else about the guilt and shame and remorse. Don't get into that. Right here, right now. If today, right this moment, you're just centered. That's all that matters. And it doesn't matter where you're at. It matters how you enjoy the journey, as they say, right? It's the enjoyment of the journey. It's near the bottom of the paragraph. It says, prayer and meditation are our links to this unfailing source. Practiced regularly, they open our lives to the comfort we sought in food, but could never find. Through prayer and meditation, we align ourselves with a higher spiritual power, which gives us everything we need to live to our fullest potential. We're talking about the Overeaters Anonymous. We're talking about our food addictions, being addicted to food, and our compulsive. It could be a bulimia, anorexia, whatever. So we have these addictions, compulsions, but it could be any compulsion we talked about before, just before we talking about AA, alcohol and drugs. It could be people or any situations in our life. So right here, again, I always talk about this. We can have the solution to all these problems. And I brought up the thing with meditation because it said in the reading I just had, meditation prayer is bringing us closer to that higher consciousness. Again, let me just say this. Look, a lot of people come into the meetings and they say this, they don't understand the thing with the God or the higher power, the higher consciousness. It's that spirituality. Look,